Okay, we're recording. Hey, how are you?
Aloha. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. Welcome, everybody. I'm Chris Roscoe, and this is a very good friend of mine, Angela. What is your last name?
I'm actually going by Angel now, and my last name is
Angel.
Paulian.
Oh, really? Okay, then.
Yeah.
All right, so this is Angel, and we're going to be having a very special conversation today that I'm super hyped on because you had this post you did on Facebook the other day talking about the stigmas that the different genders get when it comes to like dating and social issues and all kinds of nonsense. And it was, you were saying something specifically to the point of destigmatizing people and looking at people as people instead of these like weird scapegoaty type things that people have become. And so I wanted to dig into that because I feel really passionate about that. And I think it's causing a lot of problems. And so I
Totally.
just wanted to hear a lot about what you had to say. So, first, why don't you tell the people watching who may not know you a little bit about yourself?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question too. Well, my name, yep. So my name is Angel, and I actually practice as a marriage and family therapist and relationship counselor. I'm licensed in the state of Michigan and also Hawaii, and I live
Word.
here now. Um, and so I do teleservices with people in Michigan, and I also can see people in the physical in my office here, and also teleservices in Hawaii. Um, and then I'm also super passionate about mentorship and coaching. So I have like a coaching and mentorship business, kind of like you, I've noticed also have something going with that too.
Mhm.
And so I do like video calls with people who would like a more like laid back, not as like um, official, approach, but it also is like more brief because
Oh,
for whatever reason, those people just like, we get on one or two calls and they're like, okay, I got what I need and I'm off. And I'm going to go make some changes. And if I need you, Angel, I'll call you again. So I really enjoy that as well. Um, so yeah, that's a little bit about me right now, what I got going on.
cool. Well, that actually fits really well into what we're talking about. I didn't realize you were doing
Totally.
marriage and family counseling. So that fits really well into the topic.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
So,
really passionate about family.
So I want to hear
Yeah.
about what it was, and we don't necessarily have to talk about that exact thing, but what it was that's been going on with you, like what you've been noticing that made you feel compelled to say something. Like what are you seeing in the world that had you be like, hey, like we're kind of looking at people wrong. This ain't working. Like what's going on?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, well, there's such a big answer to that question, but what's really feeling alive right now is that I have like a lot of and I don't mean this in a demeaning way. I really feel for men right now, if that's even possible. Like, um,
I think it is.
because I'm not a man, but like I'm, and of course I'm speaking in the context of hetero romance. So there's that sort of maybe limit to the conversation for
Sure.
now, but
That's all I know as well. So that kind of works out.
totally, yeah. So like men, I feel are, or I sense men are under like a lot of pressure. Um,
That's fair. That's a fair
and
assessment.
because of that pressure, it's like, what does it mean to be a man? And like, and then how are you supposed to like activate romance with women who are like really tapping into their masculine and like, I don't need no man. And like, I'm independent and like, we can do this, ladies, without the men. And I'm not a huge fan of that.
Yeah.
I
So where do
I
you
think that
land
we
on that?
really,
Like if we were to take a look at an imaginary scale that I just made up,
yeah,
and it's traditional female gender roles where like you make the babies and you cook the food and you clean the shit out of everything and somehow you find a way to love it. And then on the opposite
yeah.
side of the spectrum is like pretty much just fuck all of that. I'm not going to do any of that career and traveling and making money. That's my biz. So if hypothetically that were the spectrum, like where do you find yourself?
Well, look, I think that different people land, work different things work for different
Of
people.
course. That's why I want to know where you land.
For me right now, I am like super work focused. And that has served me really well. and I know that it's not going to be my near future, you know, like I know that I'm now in a space where I'm really strong in my own spirit, in my own heart, and I can envision the type of partner that would really like be able to serve me, and also that I would allow to lead me in that traditional, you know, like gender role sense. And I don't feel any shame about that. I'm actually really excited for that, you
Mm.
know? So that's kind of where I land.
That's awesome. So you said something there that I'd actually heard in like like a fucking meme or something the other day. But you said that you'd
You
be
with the memes.
I love them so much. It's like being tapped directly into the collective unconscious. It's like the most amusing thing in the world to me. But you said something about being willing to be led.
Oh yeah, that's
And
so
so I
romantic.
heard that the other day for the first time, and I have no idea what that means. What does that mean?
Well, I like the whole idea. Well, so now I'm just my age right now is 31.
Okay.
And so maybe it's an age thing, a life experience thing. You know, you go through the whole like uh
Stuff.
20s of like when you're dating in your 20s, and it's like, you
Yeah.
know, we're hooking up, it's a lot of gray area or whatever. Anyway,
Yes. Yeah.
being led, it, like I kind of like, I think it's kind of romantic for the guy to take the lead. So I have a lot of men in my life right now, for example, who they want to drop indirect hints at you know, like, oh yeah, maybe sometime you can come by and we can snuggle, you know? Or, and to me, it's like, I'm not going to pick up on those hints. We're grown. So it's time for you to say directly what you'd like to make happen, you know, and own that
Word.
instead of, you know, let's Netflix and chill when you're 20 or whatever the thing is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Like the loose bait that could potentially be anything.
yeah, it's like, well, what does that mean? Like, it means that you're afraid of me rejecting your invitation. That's how I see that. You
Okay,
know,
'cause
so
I was actually going to ask how
yeah,
you
so you're just
perceive
gonna throw
those
that
things.
out there. You're just gonna throw little hints out my way, and if I bite, then you're sold. But if I don't, then your ego's not hurt, you know. And I'm not really into that.
Got it. So it's kind of like hearing you talk about this, I'm getting the perspective of somebody who's like afraid to jump in a really cold pool. And so they're like dipping a toe in. They're like, not so bad. And then they like kind of stick like their ankle in. They're like, okay, word. And then you kind of slowly get in the thing. But what I'm hearing you say is to a certain degree is you just want a motherfucker to jump.
Yeah, and so there's a man in my life who is like very direct, and you know, completely owns how he feels and expresses that, but is not in a physical position to be able to join with me at this time.
It was cryptic, but I think I get it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we're geographically we're
Got it.
separated.
Got it. Okay.
Yep. And he still is he's working right now to establish his life, just like I've worked to establish my life,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so do we love each other? Of course. But is it alive or possible right now? No, it's not an option right now. Is right now the only time that exists? Yeah. You know, and you know, like, am
Classic.
I going to, I tell women all the time, like, never put yourself on ice from the dating world for someone who's not taking you off the market, or not, or saying he wants to take you off the market, but not capable of doing that right now. I think
Word.
it's really important
That's
to
fair.
stay open, you know, and maybe for men too, that's true in a lot of ways. I don't know. You tell me.
I mean, wasting your time is gender neutral, I think.
Totally. Yeah.
I've done it.
Hmm.
So what I'm curious about hearing that, because we were talking about, I don't know how far we need to go into this, but like the plight of men in the dating thing is one of the things you're saying seems to be, from my experience anyway, directly opposing to the current narrative. This idea that there's like no such thing as too careful, that like you could go to extreme degrees to make absolutely sure that everything was okay and you could still do it wrong. And the implications and repercussions of doing it wrong are potentially huge. So in a world where, because I actually had this very bizarre experience the other day, just last weekend, I met this girl at a bar that I was really into. And she's, as we're leaving, she's like, I'm not going to kiss you. And I'm like, okay, cool. We're not going to kiss. Word. But then a few days later, she straight up told me, I wish you would have anyway. And I'm like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with that? But that's not the first person who said things like that to me. And so what I'm getting at is there's this split between this whole like take charge, like do things anyway mentality that like women have voiced to me recently. And then there's this other side where it's like pretty much don't fucking touch me unless you've gotten like written consent in triplicate and it's been notarized. So like in between these extremes, like that's where I personally find the most difficulty, is because it's on a person-to-person basis and you don't necessarily know what you're dealing with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, see, that's quite a conundrum.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's a bit like sadistic too. Like, you know, it's like that may be more of a reflection of the women that you are attracting. You know, that may be more of their own issue that they're not expressing what they actually want. And they're doing like a cat and mouse thing. Like, to me, that may be more of their issue than yours. You're saying, I hear your boundary and I'm honoring that. So don't shame me for that later.
Yeah,
you know?
100%. I totally agree with that.
Don't
I thought
say
the whole thing was a little
one
whack.
thing.
But the thing that particularly interests me is the polarity of the messages that we as men can get from the collective that is women. You can get told one day that like you should be doing this thing even though I explicitly said not to. But then another day you could be saying that like retroactively you may have made somebody uncomfortable 3 years ago when you had no idea. Like it just seems like a kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing. And my personal response has just been to be completely honest and just let that go where it's going to go. I figure that's all you really can do. But I'm curious about your perspective of it, because you seem to have this fluid relationship with masculinity and femininity where you could play either role whenever. And so I'm curious where that interplay is for you between like when you want what versus like all that. Like if there's anything you have to add to that.
I have a question. Did you tell the girl outside the bar, like, well, I would really like, all I can think about is kissing you right now, but I'm hearing what you're saying.
No, I didn't say that because I thought I knew what she was doing. I thought she was being like, I'm going to make you wait like a day or two. And I was into it. I was like, that's cool. That's actually super hot. Like I'd rather that than just like be making out with some girl that I just met, you know, like that's a little grosser. But for her to like look me dead in the eyes and make it obvious that she wanted to and tell me that she's not going to, then I was like, okay, then I want to put in more effort. Like I thought it was hot. I had no idea that's what she was going for.
Yeah, see, I think that alone is really interesting for men, because I think that there's a huge assumption that dudes are players. I mean, this is like a huge generalization, but I hear this so much, especially from these like super hot goddess girlfriends I have, okay? They're just like beautiful in every way, okay? And they're like getting screwed over by men all the time, screwed over. And it's like, I think guys are in this is what I mean where I say, like, I really feel for men, like in your situation. I don't think guys, like, I don't assume that men want to just like fuck, you know, and just like, like, I don't assume that. I actually think men have a lot more depth. And that's my belief. Like men have just as much emotional vastness and depth and capacity as women. And so I actually think that men feel pressured to do the makeout right away.
100%.
Like, it's like something's wrong if you're not doing that, you know? And, you know, there's a fine line, because you don't want to get so deep in the friend zone.
Yeah, pacing is sort of which is a whole other thing. I want to bookmark that. We need to talk about that. I'm gonna make a note of that.
Oh my God. Yeah. You know, because there's this fine line. It's like, okay, you want her to be thinking, if you're romantically interested in her, you want her to be thinking of you sexually in some
Mm-hmm.
way. You know, that's a healthy, you want that attraction to be like, you know, that pot of sensuality to be boiling over time.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if you're playing it as the friend every time, or the content of your conversations are like about, oh yeah, he's treating you really bad, you should go, and you're just playing that like friend, you know what I mean? I think guys are, all in all, way more deep than we are crediting them as women. I think that they have a lot to offer, um as far as like holding space for us as women and being the protector, and this is kind of going into more gender role stuff, but creating
I'm actually
safe.
down with gender roles, to be perfectly honest. I
Yeah,
think they're great.
totally. Yeah.
But keep
Yeah,
going. I'm
I'm
listening.
becoming, yeah, tell me more about that.
Oh, I just think they're cool. Like I don't I don't know how else to say it. Like I see myself as a man. Like I'm a masculine guy. I like to work out. I like to fight. I like to play violent video games. I like to to fucking do all the
Great music.
traditional masculine things. Yeah, I want to lead. I want to break things. I want to destroy things. Like I have all those things, and I find like healthy ways to do all these. Yeah, it's really fun.
That's
And
really cute.
and I like women that are women that are feminine. Like
Right.
I like the women that are soft and nurturing and even more emotional than I know how to deal with, because that's the balancing thing. Like I'm too intellectual, and so if they're too emotional, then we can balance each other out, and it's healthy. Like the challenges, the good, the bad, the all of it. Like it helps me be free to be me, because when I know that when I'm being my fullest self and what I'm doing is like chasing my dreams and being aggressive and being potentially too intellectual and all these different things, and knowing that what I'm doing is balancing out an equation instead of butting heads with someone where we're trying to be the same thing.
Fight
I'd
for power.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd rather be like, this is who I am, and being really defined in who I am, and then ending up partnering with someone who's really defined in who they are, but complementary to what I am.
That's really beautiful. How, your explanation.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I think the danger zone or the resentment comes in when, oh, you froze for a minute.
I'm sure it'll
Can
be
you
fine.
hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I think the danger comes in, in that dynamic when when men on the extreme masculine spectrum and meet women on this extreme feminine spectrum, and that is where some like abusiveness stuff can take place, because you know, and I see it all the time in my couples work and just with my girlfriends also. You know, the extreme feminine is super submissive and passive, and I mean politically too. It happens in our you know, our global compass as well. You know, but when the girl is sort of passive and doesn't really know who she is and is just take me and you know, I'll fall into your arms,
And then the guy's like,
um
okay, well, fuck, sure.
and the guy actually, you know, a predator guy, or you know, a guy who is really in hyper masculine, high risk taker, aggressive, mismanages anger, you know, just not done the work. That's like a really dangerous combination, and that can cause a lot of like suffering, you know. So I always tell people, you want to attract someone who's into self-mastery, whether it's male, female, whatever, because if they're into self-mastery, then that'll reflect in the relationship also. So like you're like a super dope dude, you know, and you have
Thank
a
you.
lot to offer a woman, you know. Any woman would be totally blessed and lucky to have you.
Thank you.
um, you have a lot of branches of your tree too, right? And you've done a lot of work on yourself. So, and that shows, right? And so the idea is that you've done so much work on yourself that you've been able to screen better for a partner, you know, the soft feminine, who's also empowered, it sounds like is what you're into, over time. So you screen over time, you know, so you might think about this chick you met at the bar and say, and maybe have a conversation with her, right? Like, hey, I noticed you said one thing and you did another, and I really dig you. And, you know, I don't want to be made to be put in this position where I feel like, you know, I can't act on this impulse because that's what makes me manly, you know, like that instinct, that impulse that I want you, you know, and I'm going to do something about it, you know?
And those things just get more complicated over time. Like if you don't fix those things up front, like the barrier in communication just gets worse.
Oh, right away. Yeah. Right away. I tell people to talk about it right away.
Yeah, that's great. Because I actually recently had an experience where there was somebody that I couldn't quite read. Like I really liked her. She was great in my life. Like we wanted the same shit. Neither one of us could be in a relationship. We're both punks. So we wanted to work on clothes together and like being creative. And it was awesome. But there was breaks in the communication that I'd never seen before. It was all new to me. And so I didn't know necessarily what to clear up immediately or how to do it. And so and plus I really liked her at the time. So I was like, yeah, fuck it. It's not that big of a deal. But it always is. But it always is a big deal. And if you don't clear those things up, then like they compound and then the confusion becomes harder and harder to deal with. And it's just a big fucking mess that becomes harder and harder to untangle. So yeah, clear communication. So here's the thing I want to ask you. Is that too much to ask? Clear communication? Like, and I'm saying this as somebody who I'm 32 and I spent my entire 20s in long-term committed relationships. So I was in the one after the other, two of them for 10 years straight. And so this is the first time I'm dating in 10 years. Yeah, I picked a hell of a time to start dating.
Good job.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really killing it. So it seems that good communication is a lot to ask of people in general, but it is. How do I want to say this? Is it too fucking much to ask? Is that something women talk about, like being good communicators, and like what does that look like from the perspective of a woman? Like, am I seeing it as something different than you see it as? Is good communication to me something different than it may be to you and maybe to other people? And so what I'm doing is my version of it that isn't syncing up with someone else's. Like, what is good communication to you? And do you find that it's a value in a lot of the women that you meet?
Yeah, I find this is, again, you know, like, I don't know if you're asking it specifically around gender, but what I notice is it's a gender stereotype, you know, that men can't communicate. You know, well, that's simply not true.
I mean, to be fair, a lot of them can't.
I mean, a lot of women can't communicate. And it's not, and the word can't, right? It's like, it's not that we can't, it's that maybe we won't, or we don't have the tools yet to communicate in a productive manner.
Currently unable.
Manner. I'm sorry?
Currently unable.
Yeah, totally. Yep. Currently up until now.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I love that phrase, up until now. So like women, of course, I can speak, you know, for women, most women, maybe, like, we crave communication. Communication builds intimacy. Intimacy builds longevity, like in relationships, and safety and trust and all that yummy stuff. But like, men crave the communication also, and communication is not just verbal. There's verbal and there's nonverbal, right? God, there's a lot to discuss. There's a lot to go over on this topic,
but I love like a motherfucker.
I love role playing with people. You know, if they're going to have a talk, and I'm working with a guy right now who, you know, he's not sure if he's going to stay with this partner, this girlfriend, or not. And there's a lot of red flags, like what I would call, there's been a lot of red flags You know, they've had an on and off relationship for like a year. And so they never make it quite past the honeymoon phase. You know what the honeymoon phase is?
I
Like,
know all about the fucking honeymoon phase.
totally, yeah. It's like they get the honeymoon phase and then they just distance right before it actually gets real, you know?
Ah.
And so that's like kind of the pattern.
I could see why
And
somebody would do that.
you could see why someone or how,
Absolutely. I could see why somebody would do that.
right? Yeah. So, but the thing about getting past the honeymoon phase is that's when the real talk
Yep.
starts, communication that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, well, it's the little things. Like, well, I noticed, you know, when you had invited me out to eat, you know, and I was thinking it was going to be a date and you were going to pay. And then we got there and you told me you didn't have your wallet and you asked me to, just spot us this time more. And that made me feel not very special, you know, like those little talk. I'm just pulling an example out, right?
That's fucking amazing because that's a whole other thing to talk about.
Or, you know, the guy has, you know, on Maui, we have friends come and visiting a lot. So that's a thing in relationships when friends from the mainland come to visit. How is your partner merging with your tribe that you grew up with, or that your blood tribe, or your friends who are coming to visit? Is your partner honoring that time with them? How, you know, well, I noticed when my friends were in town, you didn't really make an effort to get to know them or to be around me. So all those little conversations. Is this too much?
No, I mean, it's interesting because I feel like I'm both getting, because like I said, this is the first time I'm being single in 10 years. And so the idea of going through all this again just sounds like a fucking nightmare to me. But but I also feel like I'm learning about life in Hawaii in general. Like y'all, it's almost like you live in this like little separate thing with your own little unique rules of things.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's interesting to me. But yeah, no, I'm going to get myself out of my nightmare perspective right now, because that is important to have people show interest in all those things, and to be able to communicate about those things is essential.
The smallest conversations, like that's where the communication starts, you know. Just the small things, you know. And then also like crediting, I love encouraging people to credit your partner, or even not just maybe he's not your partner yet, maybe you're just like, you think he's super cute and you want to see where this goes and you're like friends. Letting that person know what you love about them, you know, just like very naturally, like, I love the way you drive. I love how you drive your car. You know? Just like little stuff, like, oh, I love when you wear, you know, that, you know, I love your style. Your style's good today, you know, or like,
that's awesome.
Oh, I really like your haircut. And those are physical things, right? But even more mental, like, I love how you go to your therapy every week. I think that's super attractive, you know?
That's
like,
a cool compliment to get.
Yeah, I got a guy right now who goes to therapy, and I'm like, that's hot.
That's like, to have somebody. Those are personally my favorite things to be acknowledged for. Like when somebody acknowledges, like, because the interesting thing about doing things like that is they aren't things you don't post on social media about it. You know, you're not like, oh my god, I just went to therapy, yay! Like fucking selfie. Like, come here, therapist. Like, let's fucking show everybody. It's not like that. So for somebody to acknowledge the things that you do, like for yourself, to make your world better and the world around you better, that you don't get any social points for, that they're just like the quiet little things, like having those things recognized, for me personally, is probably the biggest thing. Like that'll go so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like my physical being, I can only do so much about, you know.
And that's only
but
gonna last so long.
Totally.
So
yeah, people can be shallow.
I know, I just moved to LA. It's a shit show. So there's two things that you said that I want to talk about. Actually, you said a bunch of things that I want to talk about. So three things actually I'm noticing that I have here is, one is the friend zone. Two is paying for dates, because that's a whole thing. And the third thing I want to talk about is when you talked about verbal versus nonverbal communication, there's this sweet spot that I'm trying to identify between like somebody who just gets you right off the bat, and then teaching people how to be with you, like love languages and like what turns you on and what turns you off and how you specifically need to be communicated with, and all these different idiosyncrasies that are going to be different from person to person, that need to be taught about versus natural chemistry. Like that is something I'm trying to figure out. And
Yeah. Well, can't you just feel it when you're with someone and you vibe like right away?
yeah, I mean, the last relationship I was in, I fell in love with her the day that I met her. Like, felt something I'd never felt in my entire life before, and I was like, "Well, fuck it, here we go. I'm just gonna jump headfirst into this thing." And
Ooh, Amy.
yeah, it was amazing. And we were together for 4.5 years, and it totally revolutionized what love is for me.
Wow.
100% life-changing thing. Like, because of her, I will never look at myself or love or women or any of it ever the same. And I fell in love with her the day that I met her, like almost immediately. And so
Wow.
that was chemistry, but there was a lot of things about me as a person that needed to be relayed that chemistry couldn't make up for. Like if,
When
like
you say
love,
chemistry, do you mean sexual, like physical chemistry?
I mean, all of it. I mean, like she was my best friend. She was the best lover I'd ever had. She was extremely supportive. I would have loved to see her as a mother. Like she seemed to fit in everything,
Yeah.
except for certain little things that if I would have known how important they were to get figured out at the time, I would have jumped
Yeah.
on it way sooner.
Right.
But there were certain things that each of us needed to teach the other person about the other person, like how to handle us when we get shut down. Because trying to, like, when you get emotionally shut down and you try to teach somebody how to deal with you when you're already in that headspace, you're probably just going to make it worse. So these things should likely be mapped out when you're not there. And I didn't know to do that. I didn't know how to do that until the areas that we were out of alignment had gotten so far out of control that I was like, holy fuck, that's the thing I should have dealt with years ago. And so that's where chemistry just doesn't cut it.
You need tools for conflict
Exactly.
resolution.
That's what I'm saying, is like, what's the line between, like, how much of it should be chemistry versus how much of it do you have to take responsibility for teaching someone how to be with you? Like, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Well, you can't chemistry your way through an entire relationship.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like,
I think I get what you're saying now.
because I'm trying to assess.
Oh my goodness, yeah, it takes so much work. That's why I love the concept of marriage. I think marriage is a really powerful construct, and I get the why involve government in love. That freaks me out. Okay, and I get that. But when you are like marriage in a spiritual sense, like a union of like, this is beyond just chemistry. Okay, like if my parents who just celebrated their 39th, bless their souls,
Jesus
they're
Christ.
39 years together. Okay.
Oof.
Oh my God. Yeah, let's take a moment for that.
Yeah.
If they went just off chemistry, forget it. Okay. Yeah. And of course, I'm sure they had chemistry when they were first,
Sure.
courting, and we always try and get the scoop, but they never want to tell us.
Mm-hmm.
But like over time, well, I don't want to throw my parents under the bus, but a lot of couples, like, they never work on their shit, and so you're just kind of like in this, like, well, I guess we're in it because we got kids or whatever. Okay. Yeah. But like a healthy marriage that you want to last over time and actually be happy and takes tools. And maybe it's not marriage for you. Maybe it's, you're for 39 years, your boyfriend and girlfriend or whatever you want to be, or you're co-parenting or whatever it is. You have a union, a domestic partnership, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever it is, like, you don't get past that much time without some sort of tools.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they're productive, sometimes they're not. So like in your case, Chris, with the 4.5, you know, there are two things that stick out. One, the intensity right away. I always tell people, now I'm like shocked that this relationship lasted 4.5 years. How amazing.
Oh, and it
You
was
know,
great.
but what I find is that when, especially my girlfriends, and I actually have experiences also, when that electricity is there right away, the highs are super high, almost like we're on ecstasy. Okay. And the lows are literally like, I want to kill myself. Like, I fucking hate myself. I hate life. I don't like, I'm nothing without this person. I'm a piece of shit. I want to
Yeah,
fucking
that
die.
helps.
Okay. Like the intensity works on both ends of the spectrum, you know, and then you start obsessively thinking about this person, and you lose all self-respect, you lose all dignity, you lose all your boundaries, you lose yourself, you know. And it's like, a lot of times what I find is the chemistry that we thought was like this chemistry was actually like superficial, because the real work is what you're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
repairing the conflict, learning each other's dance. Oh, well, when she shuts down, this is how I can soothe her.
Mm-hmm.
So it's called soothing your partner. So you have to learn tools, you know. Well, actually, like, I had someone who's romantically interested in me yesterday. He was poking me like this, like trying to be cute.
And I'm
He was
assuming you didn't
like,
find that cute.
hey, you know. And I was like, oh, I know you're trying to be nice, but I don't like getting poked.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
he was like,
great.
I like how you said that, you know. I was like, well, I don't, you know, like, it's just, I really don't like getting poked. It's like, it feels really like immature to me. And
That's
also,
fair.
like, it kind of hurts. He's really strong and sexy, like, you know. But he's like, you know, boop, 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 boop. And I'm like, we're not 10, and that's not cute. You know, my initial inside was like judging, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm like, how do I deliver this? Because I don't want him to feel rejected, right? So you
Because
learn that over time.
that's I think you're pointing to something really big there, is because I noticed for myself
Yeah.
uh that this how to soothe your partner thing can be really goddamn difficult to
Yeah.
want to do. Because a lot of the times when you need to do it, it's because your partner's doing something you wish they weren't. It's like if like you
Yeah,
wouldn't
but that's
have to soothe
ego.
them if they were making you happy, if that makes sense.
That's very egotistical.
That's what I'm saying. It is.
Yeah.
And I'm a
Self-obsessed.
person with an ego. So sometimes if somebody did something that rubs me the wrong way and I'm like over here kind of upset about it, but I know that the thing to do is really soothe them, then from an egotistical perspective, it can be difficult to cross that divide and be like, okay, I'm going to put my shit aside. I know you didn't mean to do X, Y, Z or whatever it is, or I know you're just blah, 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 blah. And so I'm going to put my shit aside and help. Like, I personally, I consider myself a fairly empathetic, compassionate, you know, more or less good person. And for
Yeah.
me, that's fucking tough. It's very tough to do. And
Hmm.
so I'm from the way you're reacting, this sounds like it's not that tough for you. So I would love to hear your perspective on it. And if it ever was tough for you, how you got better at it, stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, first I want to say I think that's so awesome that you're being so honest
Oh, sure.
about your own process. Yeah.
I'm terrible at this stuff.
Well, I've never dated you, so I can't attest to that. But I have a feeling you're a lot less terrible than you think you are. So
Yeah,
my
maybe.
biggest tip for people is, like, you know, you're skipping a part. So before you're skipping a really important step. So before you are able to get to the place where you say, yeah, I really want to hear where this is coming from for you. Wow, I really want to be in your corner and like be empathetic towards your hurt right now. You got to step back, because it can be really difficult for people. And you say exactly what you just said to me, Chris. You say, I know we have to have a tough talk, and I'm feeling my ego's getting in the way here right now. But I want closeness with you. I don't want us to push away. So I'm really doing my best here you just say out loud your process. It's really so simple. You say, I'm going to have a difficult time getting through this, but I also want us to get through this. And I'm willing to do whatever is necessary to help
So I
heal
really
whatever is
like
going
that.
on.
And I'm trying to put myself in the position of somebody who would do that. And I'm trying to figure out the value and I'm trying to figure out the value system that drives that type of behavior. Because my experience is like there's a lot of shit I don't want to do. Like, sure, would I rather be in bed right now, like getting high and playing video games? Like, probably. Like, but eventually that gets irritating, but still at the same time, like what I notice is my values are the things that speak louder than the behavior that than the behavior that's going to take me away from where I want to go. Does that make sense? Like there's the
Well,
voice
do
in
you
my
want
head
to
that's
go?
yeah.
Do you value the video games and getting high over
No, not at all.
healing your
So
issue with your girlfriend?
no, see that's what I'm trying to get to. Is it, do you value the communication itself? Is it compassion and being a loving person that you value? Is it the relationship? Is it the person? Like what's the value system that's driving you hard enough to when your evolutionary impulses are saying like fucking burn this all to the ground? What is the voice that says louder than that, like there's actually a better way? Like what's the value that's driving all that? Why the fuck would you do that?
That's a big one, Chris. I
I'm
think,
curious.
honestly, because I just am tuning into my own process. And it's just my innate nature. I think a lot of us, what I work on with people, what I enjoy working on is your family of origin and how you came up and the messages that were given to you about conflict and healing that conflict as a child, and so that's just my approach.
That's a mess.
However, because that's a huge reflection in our own values as adults,
Mm-hmm.
and we carry that into our adulthood. We carry that approach and that programming into our adulthood. And what it comes down to is, do you want to be a productive and effective communicator? And listen, we're all in the service industry in life. Like we're all in the service industry, whether you like it or not. Mm-hmm. We're all in this together kind of thing. So like, to me, it's just because of the way I came up. I did not have the pleasure of witnessing parents heal or really work towards healing their issues.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They just sort of like, there was a stagnancy. But it was, and there's a value to the way they did it, and the way they do it. They just celebrated 39 years and I fucking love them,
Yeah.
but it really hurt me that I grew up without that love map,
Mm-hmm.
and so like I really carried that with me, and I think it's really important to do that. I'm really passionate about doing that work with people and like helping guide those. Like my value is love, like what, not fear, it sounds new agey or kooky, but like the only reason I would ever turn away from someone who's reaching for me is because I'm scared that I'm going to let them down, or there's a lot of fear underneath that, so I tell people turn towards, lean towards, lean into the conflict.
Yeah, that was huge. I learned that towards the end of my last relationship, and doing that proved to be one of the hardest things I'd ever tried to do, but extremely valuable. Extremely valuable. And this is interesting because I'm realizing, hearing you talk about this is likely a personal thing with me in particular. Maybe it could have, like, my masculinity, testosterone, being a guy could probably have something to do with it. But I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness. And so for me, there's the things that I was curious about and the things that I wanted to do and who I wanted to be had absolutely no room in the house whatsoever. To
Wow.
the point where like I got kicked out of I left the religion when I was 12. I got kicked out of my house when I was 16. And I like anytime anybody would argue with me about the course I wanted to take with my life, I would just lay waste to everything. This like weird little rage switch would turn off in my head and I would just destroy everything until people would shut
Physically.
the fuck up and let me go. Yeah.
Anger.
Yeah. And so I'm realizing that like that's still in there to a certain degree. There's still this like, well, bro, if you give an inch, like they're going to take away everything from you and your whole lifestyle is going to fall apart. So you can't give an inch. And so I'm noticing that that's still in there. It doesn't grip me nearly as much, but I like what you're saying because it points to the individuality of the experience where like mine is just going to be mine because I had the struggles that I had. Like I had to fight for a sense of identity, and I'm still learning how to hold an identity without having to fight. And other people are going to have different things. So I think this idea of bringing it back to your childhood is extremely important.
It's everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's everything. And the other piece of, wow, Chris, this is really powerful that you're sharing that. I'm excited to see, you know, how others may react if we share this video too, because I think a lot of men are coming from that space where, you know, like again, to the gender role thing, men are supposed to initiate themselves. They're supposed to go out and have this identity for themselves and, you know, be powerful and, you know, like make money and do, you know, there's a whole other conversation around that construct. But it's like when you're fighting against a religious upbringing, which, you know, a lot of people struggle with, men and women, there's a lot more pressure. That pressure that's on you as a man is like tenfold.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then people get attached to like who you were instead of who you are now. You know, so Chris used to be the guy who blew a fuse, you know, or he blew a fuse. He was always fucking pissed off and mismanaging his anger, you know, and so they expect that from you now and they want to hold you to that lower vibration now. So what happens with your ex-girlfriend or partnerships, that can happen, you know, where like they saw you one way and they want to keep you in that and you're not in that. It's like the alcoholic who stops drinking, you know, and all of a sudden wants to pick up the kids from school, wants to, you know, wash the clothes, clean the house. It's like, that's a whole other conversation, but people have to meet their partner where their partner is in that very moment, because that very moment is the only thing that exists. It's true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So people, they hold on to like who he was back then, or he was drinking then, or he was cheating on me then, or well, you're still with him now.
Yeah. That's really good. Yeah. Okay, so I'm keeping an eye on time. I know you don't have a lot of time left. Is that right? Okay, so we should probably do this again because I think as we talked, we opened up like I think 10 more conversations we could probably be having. And
oh my God, you're awesome.
So I definitely want to do this again.
Me too.
Okay, cool. So anything you want to say as a sign off / goodbye, any last thing you want to, I don't know exactly how much time we have left, but.
So we'll be getting going because we have our it's 10 a.m. here and it's 1 p.m. at where you're at. Yeah. So yeah, I just really look forward. Maybe we could do this like once a week or monthly.
Yeah, all these conversations are fucking honestly ripe for me. And I probably should be talking to someone like you anyway, to be completely honest. Like there's a reason I'm not a relationship coach. Like as soon as my clients are like, "Oh, I'm having trouble with relationships," I'm like, "Ooh, me too, bud." Yeah, like here, you should listen to this conversation that I had. But no, okay, cool. Because
I appreciate you. I love that we created this together, and I'm looking forward to where this leads us. Yeah.
Likewise. I think this is super fun. All right, cool. So enjoy your day. We'll schedule something probably next week. Cool. And I'll see you soon.
Yeah, this is a good day and time for me. And then if you want to just tag my name or Angel Talk Psychotherapy, I have a page too.
Cool. And I think I'm following you, so that'll be easy to do.
Chris,
I know. So
I
good to talk to you.
appreciate you. You
I
rock.
don't think I've like spoken to you in any kind of one-on-one capacity since maybe like Burning Man.
Wow, we have just, I love our whole story we have going. It's awesome.
Seriously.
Yeah, I saw you outside of the Android Jones tent
Yes.
at Symbiosis, I think. I was trying to
Yes.
think.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will hopefully be there again. I've been working for them for a few years, and hopefully I get to go back because hopefully they go back. And so, are you going to go to anything? Hold on, I'm going to stop recording. Okay, bye, everybody.